Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is a progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, progressive, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. We are an independent media outlet that, unlike mainstream media beholden to corporations, we only owe allegiance to you. Remember, you can also send me a tweet at EGBERTOWILLIES. That is at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is Politics Done Right. Well, folks, welcome to one more edition of Politics Done Right. I'm Egberto Willies, your host. Thank you so kindly for being a part of the show. We are going to have a great show for you today. Of course, as usual, we're starting, well, on time today. Anyway, folks, how's everybody doing? I trust everybody's doing just fine. Look, we got a great show for you today, a very important show. Folks, what we have been seeing on TV, as I've been saying for the last several days, is not true. I repeat, the news that we're getting on TV is not true. Anyway, let me welcome our folks in the house. Welcome aboard. We have first and foremost, El Señor. Oh, can I get there? Why isn't my scrolling? Anyway, we have AVQ, who I think came in as numero uno, again from Brooklyn, New York. We also have Joe, came in as numero dos from Los Angeles, California. We also have in the house Jacqueline Campisi from Katy, Texas. La profesora, ¿cómo estás, mi amiga? Great to see you here. We also have Lee the Beer Cat, our resident MAGA from Austin, Texas. E2247 is in the house from who the hell knows where, all over. Gene Daigle is from, of course, down on 280. No. Gene, I'm sorry, man. I always get you wrong. Man. You got to help me out here. Alvin, Texas. He had it right there. Alvin, Texas. I know it was down 288. There we go. We also have in the house David Page. Yay. I like the way you do that name, man. I love the way you do that name. Okay, we also have in the house para ver Central New York State. I love New York. You know what? I was in New York, right? Anytime we think about New York here, we think about, New York City, Concrete City, and all of that. Well, I went to a convention. This convention was in the middle. It was in the Hudson Valley, going up the railway, following the Hudson River. And then we got out and we went to a great park. I mean, it was beautiful. I thought I was in the hill country in Texas where you have all the foliage and all that stuff. It was beautiful. Well, they had to make sure to make it beautiful because we had people from all stripes. There were MAGA, non-MAGA, urban, the whole works. And we were there to sit down and talk things through. And I did a few videos. And if you go ahead and look in my thing, all the videos that I did, I took some of the talking points that we did and the resolutions that we came out with. Beautiful out there, and the environment was great. The food was great. I can't remember the name of the camp, but if I remember, I'll go ahead and call it out. So David Page, Central New York. Bonito ese lugar, pretty. Jane B from North Carolina is in the house. Cheryl Elkins as well. ¿Cómo estás, Cheryl? La mujer activista de Massachusetts. The activist woman out of Massachusetts. All right. Elwyn Hudson, how you doing? Welcome aboard. All right, E222, you believe? Okay, I'll talk about that later on. Anyway, folks, the news that we have been getting is so bad, and it will have us make bad decisions. It will. Look, I wrote a piece, or I started to write a piece. I'm not done with it yet. I started to write a piece that pretty much talks about what our media is really doing to us and putting us really in decline. And I don't say that, sometimes we just say words and we're hyperbolic and that sort of stuff. But when I watch our news here on even the one that I like the most, right? Yes, before you forget, Cheryl, let us remember that it's gonna be the Zoom coffee with Egberto will be April 17th between 7 and 9. That is wait, no, I'm sorry. Friday the 17th. Yeah, April 17th, between 7 and 9. Welcome aboard, Bon Bon. I love that name. Bon Bon. There we go. There we go. Bon Bon. All right. So therefore, here's it, people. The news is so bad. What is happening in Iran right now is terrible. Yeah, more Iranians are dying, yes, than Israelis or Americans, but Americans and Israeli are getting hurt. A lot of destruction as well. Iran is giving it right back because we underestimated Iran. They are getting it right back. And if you think, and if you listen to Marco Rubio, you listen to Donald Trump, they are simply outright lying to us. And our media knows it. They are not getting any information that I, lowly me, and many of you in the chat, they are not. They can get much better information, or they should be able to get much better information than we can, because they have the resources, but they choose not to. They choose not to. And in the process, they're hurting us all. David Page says, Israel has systematically found ways to get USA to destroy militaries which might hold their expansion in check. Iran is the latest target. Iran gives greater rights to its women than any other Middle Eastern oil dictatorship. If USA wants to protect women, invade Saudi Arabia first. You know what? I never looked at it that way, but you're so right. You're so right about that. If you think this is about protecting women's right, yep, Saudi Arabia may be a better price, a better place to start. You know? But that's not what it's all about. Anyway, I did a few videos from Al Jazeera that I want you guys to see. Well, this one of them from Al Jazeera. I shouldn't say several videos from Al Jazeera. One from Al Jazeera, but this one is... Oh, let's go ahead and see if I should start there. I probably should start... Y'all want to start with Al Jazeera? That'll give us a good place to start. I tell you what, let me set it up here. If you listen to Marco Rubio, we are destroying the entire Iranian Navy, Army. We're getting rid of all their missiles and all of that. That's what you'd get. According to Donald Trump, we won in the first hour. After all, we decapitated the Iranian government. So when we look at the Iranian government as a dictatorship, when you have a dictatorship and you go for the head, you normally really leave a frailing country. Interestingly, Donald Trump was right. We decapitated Iran. We took away the Khomeini. We took away the heads of the military, etc. But if it was really an entrenched dictatorship, once you do that, you sort of get chaos. But somebody, I don't remember if it's in this program or my other program, said if Iran didn't really have the support of a very large, if not the majority of the population, they wouldn't exist. And that government couldn't exist. Which means, for all practical purposes, yes, there are those Iranians in America who constantly rile against their government, which I think is a repressive government personally. I personally believe that. But it's not, I am not Iranian. It's not for me to decide what occurs in Iran. The fact that after we decapitated that government, that it continued to function like a well-oiled machine should really give us pause. and we should really find a graceful exit a la Vietnam. Well, Vietnam wasn't all that gracious. As soon as possible. Because Iran cannot beat the United States. But the United States can sure beat itself. I want you to listen to this, and then we'll take it on the other side.
Also, President Trump fairly emphatic that the war has been won, although it is not over. Has the war been won?
Of course not. And the fundamental problems we face, how do you defeat an enemy whose strategy is to win by not losing? Can Iran tolerate far more punishment than we can? And the answer is economically, they're killing us with what's happening in the Strait of Hormuz. The economic penalty is going to be huge, and they're going to persist. They're going to be defiant, and we have no way of opening up the strait.
We were publicly, at least, told that this would be a short, sharp offensive. It's clearly now turning into a much longer, protracted conflict. Then does that lead us to think that where does the balance of power now lie?
Well, the United States went into this with a completely wrong assumption that the Iranians are much weaker than they are. That's part of the reason why Trump told regional leaders that this will only take 4 days. It's going to take some time for the Trump administration to understand that not only are they not going to be able to win this war in that short time frame, they're probably not even going to be able to win the war, but also in order for the Iranians to stop the war, because they have a say in this as well. They're not just going to accept any ceasefire. They're going to extract the price beyond what they already have extracted.
The US military is using, as we just spoke about, a suite of very advanced technology and artificial intelligence. Now, that has been obviously to their benefit in some cases. There are now military investigations in other circumstances. However, how much would you say that the use of this advanced technology has contributed to the success, if you would call it success, of the mission so far?
Not very much, because, as I said, air power never wins a battle. It never wins a war. The only time that air power strategically was successful was in August 1945 when we dropped 2 nuclear weapons on Japan, forcing their surrender. Unless you can threaten on the ground and use ground forces, air power will not work alone. What is it going to take for us to relearn that lesson? We failed to use it in Vietnam when we thought we had military superiority. We failed in Afghanistan. We failed in Iraq. And on the current course, we're not doing very well in Iran.
Well, of course, Donald Trump is already vowing to hit Iran even harder if it continues to block global trade. Tehran's been using multiple strategies to interrupt the global economy, jolting international markets. Trisha, Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of Defense, has said the only reason the Strait of Hormuz is closed at the moment is because of Iran. What do you make of that comment?
Well, in some ways, it's obviously true, but it's only true because the United States started a war of choice. Had the United States not started that war together with Israel, the strait would be open today. What I think is also very important now is that key states are now reaching out to the Iranians to try to find a way to negotiate their own safe passage. The Indians already struck a deal. The Europeans, France and Italy, have done so as well. They've gone to Iran to do this, not to Washington. And that reflects very clearly who is in control of the situation over there.
President Trump, though, has said the US military or the US Navy will be able to escort those ships through. Now, we've seen other leaders in the administration perhaps be reluctant to reinforce that view. But do you see that as a possibility that the US can escort those shipping lanes and make them open again?
No, it will be exceedingly difficult to do. It will be very, very bloody. The fact is that Iran has a huge advantage here with mines, suicide craft, and so forth. And all they need to do is hit an American ship. They don't have to sink one. So you can imagine the perceptions of what happens then. The biggest question is, what will it cost to open the strait? My guess is about $1 trillion. And my guess is that the Saudis and the Emirates will be delighted to pay, well, not delighted, but be forced to pay that price because it's the cheapest way out. Otherwise, Iran can keep that closed until oil is 8, 9, 10, whatever it is, $100 a barrel. And gasoline is going to be $5, $6, $7, $8, or $9 a gallon. And what do Americans have to say that with November looming?
$1 trillion is a lot, right? But until you look at the cost of everything else.
The November elections are looming, and Donald Trump must be aware of that.
Security Chief Ali Larijani has said Iran will not relent until making America sorry for this grave miscalculation. What does that look like for Iran?
The reason why the Iranians are saying this is because they believe that unless this war ends up becoming so costly that the United States concludes that it was a mistake starting it in the first place. Unless that happens, they fear that the United States will restart the war a couple of months down the road. If the Iranians agree to a ceasefire prematurely without having inflicted that cost, they believe that it will be just what happened in June of last year. They agreed to a ceasefire, and 8 months later, Israel and the United States was back. So I think there's going to be an effort to amass a significant amount of cost, and it will primarily be on the economic front in which they are going to move towards destroying Trump's presidency.
Harlan, we've looked at a spokesman for Iran's military has said the gates of hell have now been opened. Now, this was in a media released across a number of social platforms and internet sites. The US military will also be watching these sorts of videos and the sorts of rhetoric coming out from Iran's leadership, just like you and I are. What will they be thinking about those sorts of comments?
They will be ignoring that. The fundamental problem is that military force cannot and will not resolve the situation. And unless and until American presidents learn this lesson, these are going to be future Vietnams, they're going to be future Iraqs and Afghanistan. And we're repeating this issue right now. No matter how good the American military is, it ain't good enough to win this by air power and naval power alone. And unless we learn that, again, we're going to be in big, big trouble. And as I said, gasoline at $7 or $8 a gallon may be one of the final outcomes that will end this war.
Former US Naval Officer Harlan Ullman and former officer of the President of the National Iranian-American Council.
So I think we better look, again, like I said, and I want everybody to understand this, right? I am not in any way given the impression that any other country currently has the firepower we have. Maybe China, for what we don't know that they have. Okay, China is kind of a well-behaved person. They're the kind of folk that won't do anything unless you do something to them. Now, but if we believe that if we couldn't overwhelm them with our bombs, that somehow we're going to send ground troops in there, mountainous regions and everything, and somehow fight them, no, we are not winning this war. We cannot win this war. There are certain realities of war today that weren't true yesterday, yesteryear, etc. Until we get that in our thick skulls, right? And I'm not talking to you. I'm really talking to the those folks who have a tendency to believe, oh, glory, glory, hallelujah, we can do it. We cannot win this war at all. Okay, let's see what we got here. Cheryl says the expedition force of Marines in Japan have been called up. Support will probably 2,500 Marines. Support will probably be another 2,500. If they think they're going to go into Iran with special forces, 5,000 people or 25,000, I am sorry. It's a fool's errand. I mean, even if you were to start talking about, let me tell you what I'm concerned about. They can't win doing that. But will they try to go in there and use tactical nuclear weapons and then blame Iran and claim, oh, no, it's a dirty bomb, but they go in and use tactical nuclear weapons. By the way, tactical nuclear weapons are those small nuclear weapons that you'd use in the field, etc. I think Donald Trump is mad enough to do that. And I hope generals, if they start talking about those issues, would start leaking like crazy, because we are looking into this is going to be Donald Trump's biggest embarrassment. You see, Donald Trump went into Venezuela and it looked easy. And then he thought he was going to replicate that in Iran. He said as much. So anyway, as you heard, the former military guy said, it's a battle we cannot win. We are not winning. All right. We have an interesting piece here I haven't listened to it, but I am intrigued by the headline. So I'm going to play this one from our brother Michael Rudnin and see what it says here, because it's intriguing. So here we go. Well, let me put it on first, right? I'm having mic problems. If you notice, I don't know if anyway, let me check this out and then we'll take it on the other side. Para ver cómo lo comienzo. Ahora sí mismo. What's going on? Oh, I better put the sound on, right? Oh, wait, guys. Something is happening here. I don't know what it is, but I don't have it on. Bear with me a second. I'm going to have to... Yeah, I don't know. Don't worry. Mike, I don't know what it is either. So, like I said, I had just before I came on board, I had sound problems. So let's see if I can get that fixed somehow. Let me start over. And if I don't get this fixed, I will have to work on this weekend.
Breaking fucking news. Here's the clip of Donald Trump saying that Steve Bannon, Jared Kushner, Marco Rubio, and Pete Hegseth are the reason why we attacked Iran, because they needed it to. They told the president that Iran was going to attack us for. Here's the clip.
The situation was very quickly approaching the point of no return, and the United States found it intolerable, in my opinion, based on what Steve and Jared and Pete and others were telling me, Marco so involved, that I thought that they were going to attack us. I thought they would, if we didn't do this at the time we did it, I think they had in mind to attack.
Every time I watch one of these press conferences or something, bro, they get progressively worse. Every single fucking time. I'm supposed to be packing. The world's falling apart and I'm supposed to be fucking packing. I'll keep you updated with more bullshit.
You know, I actually missed that one. I actually missed what he did there. That was a good move by Trump, because you remember how they go into the press conference and says the president has a feeling. Well, he changed his feeling to blaming these other guys that were sure of what he was going to do. That's a good one. All right, let's go to this other one here that I think, let's go. Michael usually get us some good stuff. Let's go for this one. And if they find that you put that out to show that Jerusalem is in fact getting pummeled, because they are, and even if you do it on the phone or whatever, you cannot speak about it. They're blocking information out as far as the damage that these drones, these hypersonic missiles, etc., are doing on to Israel right now. And the same thing is happening with us. We're not getting the true information. You saw what I just played there. We're simply not getting the true information. One last one that I'm going to play from Michael. Let's see.
Is a bunker full of Iranian Shahed drones ready for war. Experts call these drones the AK-47s of the sky.
AK-47 of the sky is perhaps an accurate term when talking about modern drone warfare, because it really is insane just how large of a stockpile Iran has been able to make of both ballistic missiles as well as drones over the past several years. I mean, in comparison to $500,000 or $1 million missiles, these things can be produced for something along the lines of $20,000 a pop, which, yes, that is a lot of money, but in terms of war, that is really not all that much at all. Especially when you compare that to some of the more significantly more expensive American armament. But these are not the only types of drones that are utilized by the United States, as some people think, and then fail to understand when talking about economics and warfare. After watching the Russo-Ukrainian conflict that has been raging on for years, in which Iran was supplying Russia with drones to be able to attack Ukraine, naturally the United States, seeing these, wanted to come up with their own kind of version or answer to it, and so to that end, they literally copied the drone, like in almost a one-for-one, just making it slightly better and more expensive, but they copied it. This is the Lucas drone. That is something that is the US's answer to the kamikaze drone swarms of Iran. Which, yes, this thing costs almost double the cost of an Iranian drone, but simultaneously, if you go and compare the economies of the United States and Iran, that's, a lot more of these can be produced far more effectively than anything Iran has ever been able to do. The real question that some people may have at this point is, how exactly do they work?
This is a...
Yeah, well, I'm pretty sure the American drones will work just fine. This is not high technology stuff, right? These drones are not... The most important part of these drones, other than staying in the air, is landing in the right place. And the portion about landing in the right place is controlled by GPS and other types of inertial navigation. But that said, let me tell you what's happening in the Middle East right now. If you, the way GPS works is you get 3 satellites to send a signal, and when you get that signal, you triangulate with that signal, and you can pinpoint where you are within a foot or so. I think their resolutions may be better. The accuracy, they can fine tune it to better now. But guess what the United States is doing with those geosynchronous satellites out there? They're jamming them and they're giving false information. The only problem is that's a two-way street, right? Because if you're getting false information, that false information can actually get somebody else's drone to land where it's not supposed to land, and you may not actually want that to be where it actually lands. And not only that, there are other forms of navigation other than geosynchronous, or using the geosynchronous orbits of GPS satellites. So word of caution, the word is right now pilots in that area pretty much turn off their satellite navigation and use some other form of inertial navigation, meaning a gyro with with other methods. A gyroscope keeps you on a heading, right? And you can figure out the changes in your heading based on the forces applied on that gyroscope, and it kind of computes. It's not as accurate as putting you right where you need to be, but it gives you the vicinity of where you need to be. So just a matter of information there. All right. I want to go more into the media, but before I do that, there's this nasty thing that occurred today that just shows you who the Republican MAGA party really is, and that is Senator Tuberville. I don't know if you guys remember, Senator Tuberville was a coach. I think he was a coach where Mississippi or Alabama. Most of his players, or a large percentage of his players, were black, and a large percentage of his players were people of color. And for those, I wonder how those parents feel today that they had their kids under the tutelage of a guy like this. I sit down and wonder sometimes, right? When you find out that the person that spent the most time with your kid in their formative years was somebody like this, what did they ever tell your kid that may have mentally stayed in them, maybe even if in a recessive form? When my daughter was going to school here in Kingwood, I live in a predominantly white area. And the one thing I always made sure to do with my kid was to ensure that no external, well, I'm going to tell you something. I'm going to be very honest with you, because I want to talk about this. So give me about 5-6 minutes or so, guys, please, because I think this is helpful to all of us, for teachers as well. When my daughter was young, there were certain members of my family that I would always tell my daughter, my wife, whenever my daughter is there, you must be there as well. Because I'm going to tell you something. White supremacy is not a white thing. It's a psychological thing. And white supremacy affects black folk, Latinos, everybody. And the goal with white supremacy is because white supremacy is the thing that adjacency to whiteness is what it represents. So that's why if you take a look in, let's say, the Mexican culture, you will hear phrases like a parent have their kid, and the kid after the quinceañera and all of that, and they go ahead and take care, Cheryl, enjoy the bridge and give us info. But anyway, I want you guys to listen to this. I mean, sometimes it's uncomfortable for some people to hear. You come to Politics Done Right to get straight out words. So you get in every community, but I'm going to start with Latinos, specifically the Mexican community. You'll hear people use a phrase, se está mejorando la raza, right? And that is a phrase that they use if, a Mexican looking, and when I say Mexican looking, what we think of Mexican, indigenous, darker Mexican person marrying into the white community, you would hear the older folks in that community use words like mejorando la raza, which means you're improving the race, right? In the Caribbean and in South America and Latin America, even Panama, people would look at hair texture, and if it's not very thick like that of Africans or whatever, oh, this person has good hair or bad hair and that kind of stuff. Again, it's a white supremacy thing. And so when I grew up into all of this, I had a grand, we come in all shades, and I'll spill the beans. I had a grandmother that was more amenable to my older sister, who had a much lighter hue than me and my younger sister. And we could feel within that community, you could feel that difference, right? And when my daughter came about, and my daughter had a certain texture of hair that I just knew, oh, that beautiful hair, that all that kind of stuff was going to happen. And I remember telling my wife, when she is around certain family, you make sure if you ever hear anything of that nature, you squash it right away, because I was always a workaholic, and during those times when she was young, it was the formative years of Willie's Computer Software Company, building the software and all of that. And so when she went to certain relatives, it was like, I don't want to hear that at all. And you squash that immediately. But also when my daughter was going to school here in my mostly white community, and I knew what the material and the subject would be, I would tell her things like, when you hear them talk about Christopher Columbus and discovered America and how great it was, you make sure and you ask that teacher in front of everybody in your class, how can this man discover something where people were already here? And my daughter, when she started to learn about Christopher Columbus, she raised her hand in class. My daddy said that Christopher Columbus could not have discovered America because it was already here. And the teacher really got into she was nice to my daughter, and she was saying, well, we're talking about, in effect, what she wanted to say is, this is when Europeans discovered America, but people were already there. I also made my daughter aware, and to make the teacher and the class be aware, that the Pilgrims weren't these magnanimous people who sat down with the indigenous people and did their thing. I made her know what happened to slaves. I made her know what happened, and I made her know that it wasn't the fault of the kids that she was going to school with. That just, she was she went to school completely rounded. I made sure of that. I wish more parents did that. To put it bluntly, I wish more Black parents and Latino parents did that. Because it's not up to Greg Abbott and all these racist politicians to inform and let us know what we need to know. We know history. So we should be the ones that are doing that. So my daughter, by the time she got to the 5th and 6th grade, she knew all of it. In fact, there were times that she was in this office with me. This was an office, not a studio then. And I remember telling her, after the cuteness of being a young kid, later on, you would see the difference in treatment, and also with all her girlfriends, most of them in this area being white. I remember having to tell her she couldn't get away with the things that they could get away with, and having her tear up in my lap as we are talking these stories. And I'm telling you these things, right? I'm going somewhere with this. I'm telling you these things because I wonder about Tuberville, the harm that he has done to so many of his football players, knowing who he has always been and waking up to who he has always been. So for all of you that are listening right now, that are not folks of color here, these are the extra tribulations that one has to be concerned about. Because the little things that you tell your kids, the little things that they know, can affect them for the rest of their lives, what they strive for, what they think they can attain, etc. And having to come to the United States and navigate through all of that, and it's not only the United States, it's throughout, it is just what white supremacy has done to us all, right? Is having to educate first and foremost my own kid, so that as she goes out there, she can educate those whose parents have not educated them, or whose parents suffer from the same cancer that this country was founded on, that she could enlighten others. So it's so important. And I'm prefacing this because of the Tuberville story. So let me go ahead and place Tuberville, Senator Evil, Racist Tuberville, and then we'll take it on the other side.
Democratic lawmakers are condemning a blatantly anti-Muslim post by Alabama Senator Tommy Tuberville. He shared this post featuring a photo of the 9/11 attacks next to an image of New York City Mayor Zohran Mamdani, who is the city's first Muslim mayor, adding, "The enemy is inside the gates." Mayor Mamdani responded while hosting a Ramadan event in New York.
Who here has been told that you do not belong in New York City? Who here has heard the words, "Go back to where you came from"? When I hear such hatred and disdain unchecked in its rancor, I feel an isolation and a loneliness that I know that many of you have felt as well.
Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer blasted the post as mindless hate. New York Senator Kirsten Gillibrand called on Tuberville to delete it immediately and apologize. Joining us now, former Republican Congressman of Pennsylvania, Charlie Dent. Charlie, one, why would a U.S. Senator ever post something like this? And two, post it at a time when the U.S. is already facing heightened security threats because of the war?
Well, there are just some people, who are just prone to making these types of incendiary, inflammatory, and frankly, racially incendiary comments in these posts. I mean, it's beyond the pale. It's outrageous. This Islamophobia and anti-Semitism, in my view, are two different sides of the same coin. They're both driven by anger and hatred, and it needs to be condemned, whether it's coming from the right, in this case with Tuberville, or from the left with some of the anti-Semitism issues, as well as on the right on anti-Semitism. So the bottom line is, this is outrageous. After 9/11, President George W. Bush was very careful to make sure that we understood that some radical Islamists like Al-Qaeda and ISIS did not represent mainstream Islam. And we're careful to distinguish that. And now you have, elected officials, a U.S. senator making such comments. It's beyond the pale. He does owe an apology. And I'm surprised he could be sanctioned for it.
Well, it's not just Tuberville. Earlier this week, Congressman Andy Ogles wrote, "Muslims don't belong in American society." Congressman Randy Fine last month posted, "If they force us to choose, the choice between dogs and Muslims is not a difficult one." None have been condemned by Republican leaders. Why not?
Well, they need to condemn them. I can't explain why they're not pushing back on this. They should. Republicans were justifiably outraged when there were some Democratic House members who made some very inflammatory comments about the Jews. About the Benjamins. Remember those comments back in the day? Those comments were forcefully condemned. I believe resolutions were brought to the floor to condemn them, and so it just seems that the outrage can be rather selective. It's easy to be outraged when somebody in the other party does something you find very offensive. But apparently it's too difficult to do it when it's one of your own. And I think that's what we're witnessing right now.
It is terrible. And yet it is one thing to be outrageous, to be anti-Semitic, to be anti-Muslim, to be racist in any way. It is another thing to potentially ramp things up, to get things going. Do you think that these can be dangerous?
Well, sure. Look, there's a war going on in the Middle East right now. So of course we have to be vigilant that there will be people in this country who will become radicalized.
Absolutely so. Absolutely so. Okay, let's see. Welcome aboard, author. Thank you for being here. Dede, welcome for being here. Sada Climb, welcome for being here. ¿Quién más está aquí? Lynette. Oh, Lynette, I want to read that out. Lynette says, my friend's parents taught me even though I was a white girl. I didn't want to believe her. We need a world with more Mandamis. This is from Marnie now. We need a world with more Madanis, and no terrible Tommy Tuberville. You're right about that. David said, this evil Republican is lying. There has not been any anti-gay and anti-Jew statements by USA Congress members. Lynette says, I don't understand it honestly. I never had understanding the othering. And and that's what separates good folks from let me not say it that way, because that is an absolute wrong way to say it. We are victims of how we were reared, right? Because I gave my first mea culpa as far as how relatives of mine suffered from their own white supremacy. Non-white relatives of mine suffered from their own white supremacy in that their proximity to whiteness was greater than my proximity to whiteness or my daughter's proximity to whiteness, etc. And so the thing about it is there are people from back in the civil rights days, where there were white people, Jewish people, a part of the movement that actually got things done. So it is really a thing about how you were reared, but not only, and it's not only that if you were reared racist or not, it's whether you were reared to critically think or not. I think that is more important than even being reared not racist, right? In other words, I think if you were reared by racist parents, even though I don't see how you can be racist and think critically, right? But let's say you were raised by racist parents, but they encouraged you to think critically. Even as if you had racist inklings, but as you learned, because that is a lot of my white friends, right? A lot of these guys were actually racist, and some of it is still there. I talk about being sexist and homophobic, and it took decades, right, before you lost just about all aspects of it, including the muscle memory of saying certain things, etc. It's about knowing that it's something that you have to do about, because it is so stupid. Racism, sexism, homophobia. These are when you think about how dumb one has to be, how dumb I was to think a certain way about women on mental issues. How dumb, right? I sit down and I'm like, it's amazing how externalities, right, can play a part on even otherwise intelligent people. Like, let me give an example. I always talk about I'm an engineer, or a scientist. How the hell can a scientist, a doctor, or an engineer be racist? Think about that. How is it possible? You actually have a level of thinking that is more structured than, let's say, the average person. How can you be? That just shows the complexity of the mind. Brother Paul Fleming says something that you said that I wanted to read out, Brother Paul. He says, first of all, about consumers. Consumers are really strapped. They're seeing prices rise for utilities. They're seeing prices rise for gasoline. They're seeing prices rise for food, and premiums for healthcare going up by hundreds of dollars a month in many cases. This is Trump's economy, and it's only getting worse. Yeah. And to deflect, the second, it's going to be the second piece of, I'm going to use the second piece of Paul Fleming's statement. Trump on Fox attacking Latinos, blacks, and other non-whites. And he says, this is what Trump says, a lot of them were let in here. They shouldn't have been let in here. Their genetics are not exactly your genetics. It's one of these problems. It's one of those problems. Seriously, he is actually the single greatest argument against the myth of white supremacy. I love how you said that, Paul. Paul, how could you be so evil, Paul? That is such a statement. Paul proved, what he says, Donald Trump proves that there is no validity proper to white supremacy. No validity proper to white supremacy, because Donald Trump is one of the ultimate dumbest people, irrespective of hue. But you know what is scarier of that, Brother Paul? That there are actually people who were so themselves. And I want us to stop looking at thinking that Kamala Harris lost because she of an economic reason or something like that. The economic reason was simply a cover for race and sex, okay? The economic message was simply a cover for racism and sexism. It's the same reason why Hillary Clinton suffered as well. In her case, mostly sexism. It's just an excuse. It's an excuse. Michael Rudnin says, Egberto, reminders from 2 years ago from Bo, the fifth column, Tommy Tuberville and his holding up military promotions. Long form content would be worth checking. Yeah, I can't do it right now, but yeah. All right. Jacqueline Campisi says, thank you for saying this. I imagine you're talking about when I talked about my daughter and the realities about this, yeah, thank you for that, Jacqueline. I think it is important that these messages come out. And I think one of the things I like to do, right, is I don't want to be politically correct. I don't want to be here harming anybody or downing anybody, because we're all humans, right? But what I want to do is dispel the fallacies, and not only the fallacies that we as progressives are willing to hear, but the fallacies that actually innately are a part of us as human beings proper. Not because you're a white person means with the privileges that come with that pigmentation means somehow that the evils of these other kinds of prejudices cannot occur elsewhere, because they do. I was no less sexist or homophobic than a white person being prejudiced. And notice I used prejudice and not racist there, because the definition folks are using for racist is that it comes with additional parameters, meaning it comes with systemicness. And by systemicness, I'm talking about it comes with redlining, it comes with the passing of assets from one generation to the next, having gotten these assets that were of ill repute. So there's a whole lot of things that come into to racism that doesn't apply to sexism, homophobia, and all of that. It hurts nonetheless, but some of it is structural, and it's things that we always should understand and go through. All right. Marnie says, we appreciate your sharing, Egberto. That's what we have to do. And, you know, let me tell you, and Jane V says the same as well. Let me tell you something else, guys. And I'm going to direct directly to white people now. I think white people have to, and I'm talking about folks that really want to get moving forward, have to get over being scared of offending and making a mistake. I'm going to tell you that one of my biggest problems, and this applies also, this me as a the sexism in me, and I think I've told this story before. Look how I'm changing the program on the fly. I'll write the other blog and put it out later. Let me tell you something about sexism. I went to a conference with Move to Amend. We met twice a year, and we lock ourselves up in a room and in a house, actually, probably 20 of us, and we'll discuss a whole lot of issues. And I said the wrong thing, and another friend, the black guy said a sexist thing, the white guy said a sexist thing, and the whole thing shut down. The whole conference shut down. Our leader was a woman, a good woman, an assertive woman, and the conference was about certain issues that we were going to be lobbying about, and she shut it down. We're not going to talk about that. We all flew into DC to talk about that, but we're not going to talk about that. We are going to tackle this sexist issue right then and there. Okay, good. And she looked at me then and she said, and Egberto, you did something else as well that was very sexist. And I said, okay. And by the way, by then I had already I had already understood that I was sexist. And she said, and it's not my job as a woman to tell you what makes you sexist. You do your own damn research to figure out why you're sexist. And all I kept on saying is, can you at least give me an idea of what it is that I said, did, or whatever? And, you know, she just said, you just go ahead and figure it out. So I really couldn't figure it out. So I don't remember who told me that one of the things is that I came in when I just came off the plane and came into the conference, and I saw this other girl. I think her name was Ashley, and I saw her, hey Ashley, how you doing? And I gave her a hug. How you doing, beautiful? And you know, that's kind of like a Latino Panamanian kind of thing, you know. So she said, I think that's what she was talking about. She was kind of offended that you came in and says, hello, beautiful. She said, do you tell guys, hey, handsome? And I'm like, sometimes I do, you know, especially when I can't. Sometimes it's a big group. Sometimes the name don't come right away to the head. And I'll say, hey, what's up, handsome? So yeah, I wasn't doing that in the sexist form, but she's saying that. Why am I telling you this? The reason I'm saying this is because if I don't know what I did wrong, I can't fix it. And let me see if this will work. I'm not sure if the phones are working because of this stuff. Let's see. Who do I have the honor of speaking with?
You're speaking with Glenn.
Are you talking? Let me. It doesn't seem to. Let me see if I can somehow talk. Let's see from the phone, because it seems like I may be having some problems.
Yeah, I was calling about your racist little rant.
Hear you. Let's see if I can put it on a different track. Bear with me 1 second. I'm going to try a trick right here. Work. Bear with me 1 second, because I really want to hear you. If you're calling, you're probably calling and want to say something. Hold on a second. Hold with me. I'm going to try to do a trick here and see if it works. Keep talking. Let's see. There you go. I fixed that. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I was calling because you say it's how you're reared.
Are you talking?
That makes people racist.
Okay, I guess I didn't. I'm sorry that I didn't get it. If you can type it in the screen, I have to get it fixed, guys. I'm sorry about that. we are having some technical problems. I've been having it for all week, and I hadn't had the time to fix it. Okay, so let me continue. Throw it in the chat if you have something to say in the chat. And then, so let me go ahead and finish this up because we're coming close to the end of the program. So the bottom line, and this message I said was to white people now. Don't be taken aback if you don't know something, don't understand something. Ask somebody, black person, Latino, whatever, what it is that you do. If you offend, if they take it as an offense, say you're sorry and go somewhere else. But find somebody who can actually tell you whether you did what it is that happened. Because what I did, after she told me find out on my own, I couldn't find out because I didn't know why. When the other girl who didn't agree with her said, no, I think she should really tell you what it is she's talking about. Glenn, I don't have it working, Glenn. I'm sorry. I can't speak. But anyhow. So after she told me that, I went ahead and called up a whole lot of girlfriends. A lawyer, a doctor, a secretary, one of my old secretaries at Dresser Industries, to say, hey, had I ever offended you in XYZ? Because I wanted to see if this was a one-off or this was just somebody who, and it turned out in this case, it was just somebody who, I hadn't really done anything wrong, according to every single woman I spoke to. But what I'm saying is, go ahead and ask the question to the black person, the Latino person, the Asian person. I have done something to offend a white person for something that I said before. And they've come straight out and says, that isn't cool, man. So, I mean, we all do those things, and what we have to be is not scared to confront them. The race thing is a stupid thing. It's stupid that we have to have these conversations, but we live in a racialized society. And we have to be honest with ourselves and willing to get hurt, willing to also make a mistake. I don't think Bruce is in the house right now, but I remember saying something, and I always used to say it in the car with him. And finally, one time he looked at me and he said, hey, that's kind of a slur against Polish people, right? And I'm like, damn, I didn't know that. Okay, man. He said, it didn't offend me because I know, what you... I'm like, but, So, anyway. I got off tangent, but Tuberville kind of led me to where I think I needed to be. So anyhow, I got to go now, folks. Please remember to support the program. We cover a lot of issues here. We're honest here. Please go to politicsdoneright.com/newsletter to become a paid subscriber if you have the ability to do so. But become a subscriber anyway, whether you're paid or free. But I would love for more paid subscribers because we need it. If you are on Substack right now, just go ahead and click that subscribe button and become a paid subscriber if you can. So, because if you want a place to be that's going to be honest with you and also accept your honesty. In other words, if I offend, you offend, let's let each other know. Because that's how we all become better people, and that's what this is a no holds barred place. If you notice, I don't throw my MAGA folks out of here. I don't throw anybody out unless you offend others in a dangerous manner. I let everybody listen to what we're talking about. Anyway, got to get out of here. Again, subscribe, politicsdoneright.com/newsletter, or if you're in Substack already, just click that subscribe button. You can email me directly, info@politicsdoneright.com, info@politicsdoneright.com. If you want to talk about this subject where I was unable to answer the phones, drop me a line and we can talk when I fix the phones, which should be by Monday. And anything else I got to say? I don't think I have anything else to say. Here's the deal. Love you all. My name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics Done Right. And you guys know how I end this, baby. I am what? What am I again? Out! Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is a progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, progressive, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. We are an independent media outlet that, unlike mainstream media beholden to corporations, we only owe allegiance to you. Remember, you can also send me a tweet at EGBERTOWILLIES. That is at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is Politics Done Right.